Kevin Iole is with us, our lead boxing writer. You were at the Palms, the Rios Acosta fight. Awesome. I mean, that's going to be one of those fights again. That's going to be right in the top five, I think, for fight of the year.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's going to be fight of the year, but it's certainly going to be one of our nominees for the finalists. I can't imagine. I mean, it's going to be a great year for boxing if something beats that out. You know, I was in Las Vegas for that fight. It was actually a split-site doubleheader, and it was a total yawner in the first half of the Showtime doubleheader. Antonio DeMarco won his fight, a nominal lightweight contender. I think you can forget about DeMarco. Not much of a contender in my mind to beat elite guys. Certainly not to beat a guy like Brandos Rios. But you know, that fight between Rios and Miguel Acosta, the WBA champion, that was something else, and it was fun to watch.
Well, it's one of those rare fights where both guys come out big winners, because I think Acosta is a guy you can book with just about anyone at 135 pounds, maybe even 140, because he's an action fighter. I was really impressed, you know, through the first 5 or 6 rounds. But Rios, man, what a chin, and he just kept pushing forward, and he wore the guy down.
Yeah, he did. And, you know, one of the things that I think that Showtime and HBO have to get, and I think Showtime's done a better job of it than HBO recently, is you want to put on fights that are going to be good TV fights. You know what? This fight coming up March 12th that HBO has, Sergio Martinez, who's the rightful middleweight champion, the crooks that run the sanctioning bodies, they basically stripped him of his belts, but he is the middleweight champion. And Sergio is fighting Sergey Zingerich. Now, Zingerich is a good fighter, but he's not a TV fighter. He's a defensive run, boxing type guy. He's not going to mix it up. He's not going to make an entertaining fight. You know, not a lot of people, especially in the States, appreciate that kind of boxing. They appreciate what they saw to Rios and Acosta. That's the kind of fight that I think, we want to see Showtime and HBO look to put on. And those are the fights that, get the fans into it, get people talking. And, hey, we thought that was the week before. That's what Nonito Donaire and Fernando Montiel were going to do. Now, no complaint about the way that fight went. Donaire had a definitive knockout. Donaire was just so much better than Montiel, as it turned out, that we didn't get the back and forth. Rios and Acosta were closer, but it was a terrific, terrific fight.
I was really impressed by Rios. Like I said, his chin, the fact that he didn't wilt over the first 4 rounds, because I thought Acosta was really ripping him apart.
Yeah, I agree.
And boy, Rios, again, the chin is awesome, and then just the ability to slow the fight down and make it a grinder and get it on the ropes. And I mean, he knocked him down. He knocked him down first with kind of a short, it was a jab / short hook, and then the off balance knockdown, and then the 10th round knockout was freaking vicious. And you talk about killer instinct. The guy is leaning on the ropes, and it was just chop, chop, chop.
Yeah. I was sitting next to Steve Carr from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and I said to him in the second round, I said, Rios isn't going to win this fight if he doesn't close the distance. Acosta was doing a good job. He was moving a lot, and I want to get back to that in a second to talk about, I think that was a mistake the way he was moving. But he had distance between himself and Brandos Rios, and Rios wasn't able to land those punches early in the fight. So Rios was putting the pressure on, but Acosta was managing to stay away and was landing some really good shots of his own. Once finally Brandos Rios figured out a way to get closer to Miguel Acosta, then all of a sudden the fight changed, because now all of a sudden Acosta's punches aren't able to have the same kind of impact, and Brandos Rios was really, exerting his will on Miguel Acosta.
So it goes down as a Rios win in the 10th round. How'd you have it scored on the way to the 10th? Because I saw you arguing with some people up on Twitter.
I scored at 87-82. I gave the 3 of the first 4 rounds to Miguel Acosta, and I gave the last bunch to Brandos Rios. I felt pretty good about my score. In fact, my score was 1 point off of the judges, and one of the judges I was 8 of the 9 rounds with, and the only round, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the 8th round, that I did say at the time, close round, could go either way. I gave it to Rios. It was one of those rounds. But to my way of thinking, I mean, somebody said Acosta was ahead in the fight. Ridiculous. Acosta was not ahead in the fight. Acosta was doing well early in the fight. He faded in the second half of the fight. He got knocked down twice. You have to remember, when you get knocked, forget in the final knockdown, when the third time you didn't score that round, but in the 2 rounds where there were the knockdowns, Steve, Rios has a 4-point advantage right there. So if you're saying that Acosta was winning the fight after 9 rounds, which some people had, then you're basically saying Acosta essentially won every other round. I just don't see that being the case. I think Acosta did a great job in the first 4 rounds. Rios in the last 5 rounds, kind of took over. I'm sorry for those people who kind of felt that I was a wise guy in saying that, feeling strong about my decision. But I looked, and there was a judge sitting right next to me. I was on the ring apron in my nice white shirt, got blood over it. So I have to talk to my boss to see if we can put that in on an expense account. So they cover that blood from ringside on your white shirt. I got it on my computer. I got it on my shirt. But I was sitting right next to the judge, and he and I, on the same view, had 8 of the 9 rounds exactly the same. I think it was a pretty easy fight to score.
So Bob Arum was in the ring after the fight and said, hey, a star is born. He was smiling ear to ear. He has a right to be smiling ear to ear. This guy is a really hot prospect now. You can book him in some great fights, and I think they're going to be action fights, and he can call out just about anybody.
Yeah. Do I think Brandon Rios is a top 10 fighter in the world? No. Do I think Brandon Rios is going to hold the championship a really long time? Probably not. But I think what you're going to get used to seeing Brandon Rios, because he's going to be on television a lot. And a lot of boxing writers keep bringing up Arturo Gatti, and I'm going to bring him up again. Gatti was a world champion, not really the greatest talented fighter, but he was a hard-nosed, tough guy who came to fight every single time. That's the kind of guy you want to have on TV. And I think that's what Brandon Rios is. Maybe not quite as exciting as Arturo Gatti, but I think now that he's kind of gotten his legs, we're starting to see, the last couple performances that he had. Anthony Peterson in September, Tehran a year ago in February was an upset, and he looked really good in that fight. I think, now he kind of knows where he fits in there, and, he can take a punch. That's what you want. You want to see a guy at that level that can take a punch, because if you're going to fight his style, you got to be able to take it. He clearly can take it. To me, I think, get used to Brandon Rios. You're going to see him in some pretty good fights. I'll tell you the fight that would want to see. He hates, and I mean hates, Victor Ortiz. And Victor Ortiz feels the same way about him. Ortiz has a fight scheduled, but if we could ever see that, boy, that would be something else.
Well, you've called it the nuclear winter with Golden Boy and Top Rank, and the fact that, at one point Top Rank was working with Victor. I don't see that fight happening. So would it be crazy? Let's look at fighters outside of that mix. Would it be crazy to call out maybe one of the King fighters? If it were, Devin Alexander, is it Timothy Bradley?
The first thing, let me tell you, Steve, the first thing he's going to look at in that fight is Marco Antonio Barrera. Top Rank has Barrera under contract. Barrera wants to fight for a world title one more time before he retires. So they are going to offer the fight to Marco Antonio Barrera. Does Barrera want to take that fight? He already fought Amir Khan. Does he want to come back? I think if Marco looks at that fight and sees, what he's got his hands full with Brandon Rios, I don't think at this stage of his career, at this stage of his life, he's going to want that fight. Barrera is, one of the tough guys of all time. Does he take that fight? If he takes it, that'll be the fight that we see next for Brandon Rios. But if not, I think, now all of a sudden there's a lot of doors open. Rios is willing to go to 140. He wants to fight, the best guys out there. And so I think, he's talking about fighting Juan Manuel Marquez. Juan Manuel Marquez, who has been with Golden Boy. Now there's all of a sudden some question. Is he a Golden Boy fighter anymore? He wants Manny Pacquiao. He's not so interested in fighting Brandon Rios. But there's a lot of those kind of fights at 35 and 40. Rios even, I think he was a little bit full of himself saying he would even go to 47 to fight. I think there's plenty of good fights for him at 35 and 40. And I think that, you will see him in a couple of those. Does he fight a guy like a Marcos Maidana? Does he fight a guy like a Timothy Bradley? Here's a scenario that I think maybe could play out. Timothy Bradley's going to fight Amir Khan in July. Assuming Amir Khan beats Paul McCloskey. His contract is up with Gary Shaw after that fight. I think everybody but Gary Shaw expects Timothy Bradley to leave and sign with somebody else at that point. And if in fact that happens, he's an impending free agent and does it. It's like you're playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates and you got a chance to sign with the Red Sox or Yankees, somebody else. He's going. And so once that happens, if that happens, Top Rank would be interested in him, and before they get into Pacquiao, that could be a stepping stone fight to get to Manny Pacquiao for Tim Bradley. So I think there's a lot of angles where Brandon Rios could go. I think the one good thing is boxing fans are in store for some good fights with this kid because the opponents are there, and he certainly has the kind of heart and the kind of style and the willingness to fight anybody that would make entertaining TV fights.
Good deal, Kevin. Nice job. We'll check back with you later in the week as we have another good fight card coming up at the end of the week.
Thank you, sir.